Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Wisdom of Womanhood podcast. Oh, that was a sultry intro. It's because we've just been talking about my Tantra workshop.
You're
And
like,
I was like,
whoa.
whoa. Ooh. I am one of your two lovely co-hosts, Miss Showy Moon. I feel like we're going to the ring.
I'm just gonna go. I'm Pippa Leslie. Mm.
Pippa Leslie and Showy Moon. Look at us go. So Pippa had a fantastic idea for this week's topic. We have covered over our last few sessions, obviously some more information about Pippa and I. We kind of went into some more personal stories. And then the few before that were like quite broad and unisex in the conversations and fantastic topics. And I kind of was getting this nudge that we bring this episode back to relating deeply to us as women. And I kind of had that thought. And then Pippa's like, I've got an idea for this week's topic, which will be all around single motherhood, which felt really good to me when she brought that because I feel like it's an untold story, and especially an untold story in like a really raw, honest way. The challenges, the benefits, and the messiness, the murkiness, the joy, like all the parts in it. It's often a voice that isn't heard very much.
Mm.
As a single mother, even just like the most simple of things where when I go to places with my kids, I can never get like family passes. When they brought in new regulations around swimming, I couldn't even take my kids swimming because I'm a single parent. And like all of these like different things that when
Yeah.
I go out, I get the message a lot that I'm not a whole family. Like that message comes to me a lot that like I'm only part of a family, my three kids and I. And there's so many kind of messages around it, and people's responses when I share about my journey of parenting and stuff like that. So yeah, we're there. And when Pippa and I were speaking before, we were talking about how it will be really nice for obviously single mothers to resonate with the message that we want to share and feel like there's something that really gets to hold them and support them. And not that my journey will be exactly the same, but really just to bring some respect and reverence to the single mother. And also just help any other listener to get some insight into actually what it is like. Because just like when you don't have children, you don't know what it's like with children. However, coming from someone that parented for over 5 years in a two-parent household, and now I've parented for almost 7 years in a single parent household, I could never have guessed or known or felt what this experience was going to be like. And so just maybe to give some insights, maybe bring in like a really nice compassionate lens and a bit more understanding for what life is like for us as single mamas.
Yeah, and I think it actually you kind of when you said about the family passes, like you always get the two like family pass of four, two adults, two
Yep.
kids. Like, why isn't there
And I'm a
more
parent
like,
with three kids.
single mom, single dads with kids? Like, it's just
Yeah.
crazy, isn't it? Because that's
Yeah.
like there's a lot of single moms and single dads out there. So it's kind of like, and also the difference between a single mother who's a full-time single mother and then a single mother who's a part-time single mother where they have the co-parenting as well, because I think that those two in themselves can again, single mother who's full-time single mother, which I've got a couple of clients out are full-time single mothers, the difficulties with that, the no time, finding time for themselves, the struggle of like, taking that time to do breath work, meditate, things like that when they've just got like, two or three kids, like needing them constantly. And I think that's again another challenge in itself with the obviously then you have the co-parenting as well. So I think I can't speak for obviously single mother because that's not anything that I've experienced. I didn't have a single mother. I had two parents, two very loving parents, and they're still together. So I think it's just been lovely to get your experience on that and how you've navigated it and like I said to you on the text, you're an inspiration for so many with things like that. So I think a lot of women are going to listen and be like, I can do this. I got this.
Yeah. Great, even place to start. And I love that you shared that there are obviously different dynamics within that. And I have felt so much discomfort in even using the term single mum. Like I have felt so much discomfort because of the appreciation and respect I have for mothers that full time have their babies without any support or like the occasional support. And like I would devalue myself in that and be like, oh, well, I don't have it as bad. You know, I don't for like a long time. And not even just me. I see the responses that I get sometimes when people ask about my situation. I say, oh, yeah, I've got 50-50 care with the kids. And then I have to feel like I have to justify it because, and
Yeah.
I know I see
Yeah.
it for some people because they don't have a very good poker face. As a mother, they're like, oh, and you can tell in their head, they're like, why don't you have your kids more? Like, why not you as their mother? Because there's this expectation the mother should always have the kids or should sacrifice her whole life for her kids, or if the parents separated, that the mother should have them more. And almost as if because I have my kid's father, who is a great dad and wants to be in their lives, and both of us actually would want more time with our kids. I'll even like justify it. I'd be like, oh, well, you know, for the first 3 years, I had them more, and then we decided, and I've had this thing where I'm like, why the fuck
Are you
am I
justifying it?
trying to prove to society that I even get to like have an acknowledgement for me and my experience because it's not that. Like there's no, oh, we haven't got it as bad. Oh, like, oh, that's so nice. And I often hear that's so nice you have free time. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Do you know what I do in my free time? Is
Yeah.
I work my ass
Yeah,
off
you do. Yeah.
so that my kids are not in before and after school care. So my kids have a beautiful home that they get to live in. So my kids have like, you know, the experiences that they get to have. I had like an 11-hour day the other day when I didn't have my kids. And that's not like something that only even every now and then happens. You know, like but that whole perception of, oh, like, oh, that's so nice for you. And do you know what I want to get across to everyone is that for every single parent, mother, father, whatever situation you're in, there is never a moment when you are pregnant and you are thinking, I'm going to miss out on some of my kids' birthdays. Like, oh, fuck, this is actually making me emotional. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be there for Christmas sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, you never think that that's going to be the situation. And then when you have that, like, oh, well, you know, that's so nice for you. Like, it actually fucking hurts, you
Yeah, it's
know?
just yeah.
And it's just like, and I know it's not intentional, but this is what I want to come into this conversation is that you never know
Yeah.
what somebody is going through in their situation. So please don't think that you know. And also, like, I know there's so many mothers that are in situations where they yearn to be single mothers because they're
Yeah.
in shitty
Exactly.
relationships, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
or they actually are already raising their children alone, even if they're in a relationship. And so it's this, I just want us to dismantle this whole thing of like wrong or right, or like you must have it easier than them, or oh, that's so nice for you. Like, just let's get rid of that and meet people where they're at, like right now, of what's that like for you?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I've ever had anyone respond when I've kind of, you know, spoken about my children in our situation of just what's that like? Like,
How
how
do
do
you
you
find
find
that?
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like that in itself, and that curiosity and inquiry can be the one thing that is like, oh my gosh, they actually want to know like about my story and about what my life is. And instead of this idea that we have around parenting, you know, and how like this is how it should be done. And if it's not this, then it's this. And I fucking resent the term broken home.
Oh
Like
yeah, no.
if I ever hear it, I will very,
Flip
very,
it up. Yeah.
yeah, loudly um argue it, because there are so many children that live in homes with two parents that are being abused right now. And there are so many families, there are so many relationships with this domestic violence when they're together. And there are so many families that are co-parenting where everyone is happier and healthier than if they were living together.
Yeah.
And so it's us kind of getting rid of this idea of how it should be or what's best for the kids, because you don't know. Like, unless you are those children living in their experiences, like, even I'm not going to claim to know what my children's
Yeah.
experiences are. You know, I can gauge it, you know, and I can put all of my skills and all of my understanding there, but I'm not going to pretend to know what their lives are like. And so the only like really important thing within these conversations is because everyone feeling safe and cared for, you
That's
know.
yeah. Yeah. That's what I was about to say about like a theme I see a lot, and I know people mean well and they're trying to help and support others sometimes. But when it comes to like, a woman who's maybe in an abusive relationship, they don't know the whole story, is like, oh, just leave, just leave. And that's actually not the best advice to give somebody, because it's like leaving might make them feel less safe than actually staying. So it's just, like you said, that mindfulness around, you could use this around anything, like even with pregnancy, the people making comments about how big I look and things like that. Like we just have to like break down these and be more mindful of how we approach things. Like, can we take a minute to breathe? Like, even if we don't say anything, there's this kind
Mhm.
of like, I had this conversation with a lady at the New World checkout last week, and she said, "Hey, how are you? How long have you got?" I said, "Oh, a couple of weeks." And I said, "You know what? Has anyone ever said to you when you ask like, how are you? Because normally the same, like, oh, hi, how's your day? Have you had a busy day? Has anyone ever said to you like, my day is really shit? I feel like shit today." Like everyone's just like, "Yeah, I'm good. How are you?" It's like we're just this kind of like programmed to be like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I'm good. How are you?" So today
Mm.
I went and got a few things at New World, and she said, "Oh, hey," because they get to know your face. And she said, "How are you feeling today?" I was like, "I'm okay. I'm just a bit tired today." I said, "I had really bad sleep last night." She's like, "Oh, well," and she's giving me loads of little cute tips, and because she's had kids. And I just thought like it kind of brings the conversation differently, and I just, when it comes to like
Oh, thank
co-parenting or whatever dynamic you're in, I think it's just like being able to express like how that feels for you and how that feels for me, and how that I watched Chris be a single dad for like 2 or 3 years, and how he found that challenging at times, like, and when the kids left, like he would resonate what you just kind of got upset about, because I was getting emotional because I was thinking of what Chris said. He would
you.
kill for his kids full time because he just misses
Mhm.
them when they're not here. And like they go back to the mums, and we miss them because we're just, it goes from like, mum mode to then just like, do okay, get my work done and do other things, and we're still busy when they're not here. But when Chris was a single dad, it was just real. Obviously, I was separated from him because I was in the UK. He had different challenges going on. He
Yeah.
had a partner, but I wasn't there, and
Mhm.
challenging that, and like again missing out on birthdays or missing out on Christmases, and having different, he has them on Christmas afternoon, or and just how it changes that what we think a whole family looks like, and I think that's just being mindful of how we approach it for people.
Well, there is in nearly every single circumstance, if there is single parenting, co-parenting happening, grief will be present because more than likely it is not the life that you imagined, and there is an alternative life or lives that you imagined that you would have with your children that existed, and that could have existed for 3 months, 6 months, 12 years, 20 years before it changed. There is a life that has existed in your mind that you thought you were going to have, how you thought you were going to celebrate their fifth birthday, their like high school graduation, like all of those things, and the milestones, and the first walking and the first talking, and like all of those things you've imagined how they were going to be. And then when you separate from the other parent, that changes.
Yeah.
Regardless of how it changes, and it's not the same. Who you thought you were going to be, the amount of support you thought you were going to receive, like all of those things then don't exist anymore. And so you're in an often constant process of grief,
Yeah.
and sometimes like it moves away and it's not so present and you're in it, and then sometimes it'll just whack you, and it'll catch you. And I know, like, always leading up to my kids' birthdays, because sometimes I'm not there the morning that they wake up on their birthdays, and um I have always asked to see them, at least even just to drop off like some balloons, you know, or something to them on the actual day. But I've been lying in my bed by myself, like going back to the moments I was in labor with them.
Mm.
Like, and they're not there.
Yeah.
Like, you don't imagine those things
Yeah,
not
no.
being there. I never was like, oh, yay, I'm gonna be like a single parent and not be with my children when I'm going through all these memories of like holding them in my tummy and birthing them and these big initiation things where then like I'm alone in this.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's those things that it's just really important, you know, for us to speak into and share of and
Mm.
you know, and to go that's real, like this grief is real. And it doesn't mean that life is bad now or
Yeah.
worse or anything, but what it means is that life is not how we thought it was going to be.
Mm.
You know, and also in there, you're also supporting your children through all of their own grief, depending on the ages that they were. You know, my kids were quite young, so mine were like 5, 2, and 1 when we separated. My youngest was 14 months old. However, like my 13-year-old daughter has recently she's had this whole like new flood of frustrations around having two homes. You know, and for a long time there weren't any issues with it, but recently, and that could have to do with a lot of things and the age and the stage and all these things, but she's making like regular comments on,
Yeah.
oh, you know, well, if I knew where all my stuff was, I lose everything because you know I have to go between the two houses, and just like little comments of
Yeah.
frustration. And in that moment, as the parent, like to attempt in those moments to not beat yourself up,
Mm.
because you have directly or indirectly contributed to their frustration right now, particularly if you're the one that decided to leave the relationship.
Mm.
And so, you know, those you're also supporting and holding your children through their grievances, you know,
Yeah.
and also like these things they love, you know, they love that they get two Christmases, you know, and love they get, you know, like if Osiris got 3 birthday cakes this year because
Yeah.
I made it one, and then we had to cancel the birthday party and postpone it. We still ate it, and then his dad had one, and then I just made him another one for his other birthday. So he's just like, yeah, like winning at life. But it, you know, and it can be completely out of the blue as well, that your children, you know, will share things or things will come up. And so then there's that like holding space for their view on the experience, you know, and any of the things that they might have, and just like validating it and trying to remain as that like steadfast, I've got you, while at the same time all of these emotions and thoughts, you know, are present in there, and that can be really, really challenging. Yeah, and there's a couple of pieces around this where it's like, I think for me personally, I've actually tried so hard to not go into the victim mentality of this.
Yeah.
I kind of swung so much the other way, of like, okay, I chose this. I was the one that, well, I was the one that initiated the conversation for the separation. And he might have his own perspective on this. However, there were things happening both sides that led to the separation.
Yeah.
Um, at the end of the day, the choice was put on me. As in, when I first brought the conversation, he said to me, you've got 24 hours to decide if you're in or out of this marriage. No conversation, no like, can I support? Is there anything I can do? No, like, let's fix this. You've got 24 hours to make this
Yeah.
decision. It was completely put on me, which then meant I had to be the one that held it. And so, like, in that, there is so much of it. So from then, my whole like thing was, okay, well, you chose this, so just fucking deal with it.
Yeah.
Like fuck, deal with it. You don't get to process anything about it. Like, just get on with life, make it happen. You chose this. And that in itself has been like a super mind fuck. Like a
Well,
real
also
mind.
like you leaving a relationship and navigating that change in that dynamic is like the heartbreak that's involved as well. Like going through a relationship breakup, a marriage breakup in your instance, like navigating that whilst looking after 3 very young children. I know like every dynamic's different for each person, but like kind of focusing on your story right now, like you were navigating like that choice, feeling that guilt of actually like, I'm actually going to be the one that does break this family up, but then it was put
Mhm.
on you. So it's like
And I
all that,
had that
like
sense,
how you felt in that, like how, like that I could feel the pressure, like I can feel the heaviness already, like how it would have felt just to be like, why is it all put on me? You know, that kind of thing, you know?
and blessed because I know he was hurting at the time. But my ex-husband said to me, "Well, you can tell Edie that you've ruined her life."
Yeah.
My like 5-year-old daughter, like you can, well, you have to sit down with her, tell her that you're ruining her life, and I did, and I sat down
But
with her and I spoke.
you weren't ruining her life, you know, it's like you
Yeah.
weren't. Like what a strong
It's like
mother,
those,
what a
those
strong mother
comments
she
in
has
that
to look up
card.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. And and she's blessed. Like my kid's got an extra parent that loves them, and 2 extra siblings, and a whole other family, and a happier mum and a happier dad, and all of these other people that never would have come into our lives if it wasn't for that, And but I had to hold really, really tightly onto that faith. Like leaving my marriage was the biggest test of faith I've ever had to this day, because I knew that the path forward was not in that. However, I had hardly any evidence to prove it. And I had every single person around us not thinking that. And then afterwards, I had every single person, like everyone in the family, all of our friends, questioning me, judging me, shaming me, like telling me how wrong I was, like all of those things. And now they get it, but at the time they didn't. So, I was really persecuted as like the bad guy. And so what came from that is very, very little support. Like very little support of then, like you said, trying to become used to now. Like I was still working a full-time job, while having the kids 4 nights a week, like while, Pippa asked me this question this morning actually around like, have I ever been through financial hardship? And I was like, are you fucking not you? I was like, and in my head, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like so many times. Like so many times have I been like, how am I going to keep a roof over my kids' heads? And like being the one income earner of a family of 4 people, like the so many times I have just had to dig so fucking deep, like, and problem solve, go, what skills do I have? How can I do that? Just how can I like get us through?
Yeah.
Because it's not even that there's no other financial support to lean on. It's that there's no other, most of that period of time, like until recently having the emotional support of my partner now, but there's no emotional support for
Yeah.
navigating through that. Like there's no one to talk to
Excuse
at the
me.
end of the day. And I
Yeah.
think that was the thing that in my years of being single as well,
Yeah.
they've had one relationship as well since the marriage breakup, but we never lived together. But one of the things is like you don't have a person to end the day with. Like there's no adult. You can go through like, whole periods of time where you don't just have an adult being like, hey, like, are you
How
all
are
good?
you? Yeah.
Like what's happening? What's going on? Or and the other big thing that I know a lot of mothers in particular have guilt over is when we lose our shit. And that happens because we're not perfect. You can't tag out. Like there's
Yeah.
no other person to tag out. And in my situation where there's one adult and 3 kids, and then they're getting into arguments, and then they need support, they need regulation, they all need this. There's no like, oh, cool, tag in, I'll go and take a breath,
Yeah.
calm
Yeah.
myself down, come back in. It's like, no. And everyone needs me. They need something from me all the time. Like Wednesdays can be really challenging because I pick them up from school. That's our crossover day. And we're learning to get better at this. But as soon as we get into the car, all 3 of them, like, I want to tell you this one, I want to tell you this one, I want to tell you this one. And like they're all like so excited to see me, and then they all feel like I just want to be seen and heard by mum because they're all feeling the lack of getting that time
Yeah.
with me. And so then that can create conflict between them, like one person where the energy is like constantly, being pulled, and it's trying to remain in a place of, and you can't do this like as one adult with one or many children. It's very challenging to have enough energy and love and time to give so that everyone feels like they're always getting enough.
Mm.
And so it's this like having to accept that, like just accepting that and going, okay, like today, if I just show up with as much love and time and energy as I possibly can, because it's not just the mothering, it's the fact that you're still the only person doing all the cooking, doing all the lunch boxes, all the cleaning, like organizing, all of the sports stuff when it's with you. Like there's while having multiple businesses in my situation, like and a job, and all of those things, and looking after my car and my garden and the social events,
Yeah.
and like it's even just containing all of the organization and energy that it takes to parent. And that's something that I think it's very hard for people to grasp,
Yeah.
especially in you've never been a parent, but also if you've never been a single parent, because it's just, you can't drop the ball, like you can't just, I just forgot to make the lunch boxes.
Mm.
I just forgot about that I forgot about that sports thing, like it's like, it's constantly, just going, okay, what do I need to remember? Who's where? What's happening? I'm organizing that play date. I'm doing that thing. Like I've got to organize a birthday party. It's like, it takes a lot.
Mm.
And mother guilt within this. I have never spoken particularly to a single mother that has not felt deep guilt around not giving her children as much as they think that they need to give them. And this is the conversation that's come in with so many of my clients around this is, if today we have 20% to give and we give that whole 20%, that is you giving your all to your children, and also that one thing I've shifted from is like allowing them to see us in our imperfections.
Yeah.
And if we are messing up, owning it, and mending it as much as we can. But also, I don't want my children to try and attain perfection. And so, in
Mm.
order for them to do that, I have to not try and attain perfection within me as a mother. Biggest challenges, especially not having a mother that could provide that safety and love and care and everything. And so that's like a message I really want us to hear, like as single mothers, is they chose you, and they chose you in the age and stage and all the growth you're going through and all the times that you feel like you messed up, and like they chose you, and they're choosing you all the time, and even in those moments where they tell you they fucking hate you, and you're ruining my life, and all of those things, which we hear often.
Yeah.
It's going like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep showing up in love and being as kind as I possibly can with myself.
Mm.
um because that's a whole challenge in itself, is remaining kind to yourself.
I was going to ask you a question of if someone is listening right now who's newly into single motherhood, what would you say to them?
Oh, like from my own personal experience,
Mm.
first 6 months in particular can be, I'm not going to make this a reality, but very, very fucking hard.
Mm.
um that was one of the most challenging times of my life.
Mm.
um Very, very isolating, because there's so much shame that
Yeah.
you can often feel around leaving a marriage as well. And people are like thinking things and saying things, and like want to ask the questions but don't ask the questions, and I know for me, like I definitely just isolated myself and just like was work, kids, that and didn't have any other way to fill up myself. So I would say just even having one person, that you can chat to and check in with, that can just keep an eye on you. Especially if you've got littlies, because you've got so much energy output happening, like so much energy output when you're
Yeah.
still looking after littlies, and when then you're doing it all by yourself. Yeah, just even, checking in on you. And honestly, I'd go to basic core human needs and just focus on that and don't fucking think about anything else.
Yeah.
If you're getting up and you're getting dressed and you're managing to have a shower, and maybe you're going to work, maybe you're not, whatever, then just celebrate that. Because it can be a period of time where you just have to focus on the little things and achieving those, and then just doing like day by day. And I will say that like over time, it definitely gets easier. Like when the kids' dad and I first separated, I wouldn't go back to my house, like to an empty house, like for like 3 months, like to the point, and I haven't shared this with many people, oh, like to the point where I would sleep in my car instead of sleeping at my house
Yeah.
because I just don't want to be in my house alone without my
Yeah.
children.
Mm.
You know, like it just, I didn't want that. I wasn't like ready for that to be reality. Especially because like my youngest was so little as well, you know, and when I was there, then I was thinking about, you know, I wonder if like he wonders where I am, you know, he couldn't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
I wasn't there. Like I couldn't understand, yeah, like why daddy didn't live with mummy anymore and why, yeah, like why didn't mummy love me enough to be with me every day? You know, all those things that just roll around and you think about him. Yeah, so it was like if it has to just be survival, then that's okay, you know, like I was definitely fucking in survival.
Yeah.
And however you are providing for your kids, get away from all the conscious parenting pages. That would be my advice.
Mm.
Honestly, you'll be triggered as fuck
Yeah.
by like seeing all the glorious things and that, you know, and this I'm not dissing conscious parenting. I have a conscious parenting page.
There's a time and
You
place
know,
for it. Yeah.
what I'm saying is you've got to be really careful that you're not comparing yourself to the highlight reel of parenting. And even at any stage, whether it's the first stages of single parenting or whether it's not, like be really careful not to compare yourselves. I say this, I'm like, don't compare yourself to me. And I'm going to keep trying to be as honest as I can in
Yeah.
it. Like, yeah, I have the benefit of fucking like a decade of working in child psychology and early childhood and all those things which have helped. You know, but I fuck it up sometimes. And I actually had a friend say to me, we are talking, I've known her for years, and we were talking one day. She goes to me, you yell at your kids? I'm like, yeah, of course I do. She's like, do you? I'm like, yeah, I do. Because I get like dysregulated and overwhelmed. I
Yeah.
was like, I don't swear with my kids. Like it's just like that's just not, I register that out. But yeah. And she goes, oh my gosh, thank goodness.
Just
Because I
yeah.
really needed to hear that because I had
Oh
this whole
God,
idea
yeah.
in my head. We're like,
Yeah.
you just were just like just floating around. I said, oh my gosh, that's horrible. Did you? And she goes, no, you're like, so you, I'm like, yeah, 100%. Like I've never claimed to be this, but it's the whole thing that can be activated in our mind where we're trying to make ourselves feel worse. And so we compare ourselves and go,
Yeah.
oh, well, I'm not doing this or achieving that. And so there must be something wrong with me. So yeah, trying to avoid the mother comparison game, which makes me like actually feel physically ill because it's not how it was ever meant to be. And it's been so intentional and it weaves into the separation between us as women. Not that long ago, we were raising our babies together. Like we were raising our babies together in tribes, you know, and we were like breastfeeding each other's
Each other's
babies,
babies, I know. Yeah.
you know, and we don't have that anymore.
I
And
know.
that's probably the one other thing that, like in hindsight, I wasn't prepared for is like total lack of support, like for single parents. There's like really not very much support. And it's kind of just like, oh, you know, she'll be right. She'll be right. You know, we're not going to look at like, you know, all the rates of postnatal depression, like, you know, look at all those things. It's like, oh, no, she'll be okay. And I think, you know, because of things just like how a lot of us don't live in intergenerational homes anymore. I had my kids young. My parents had their kids. My dad and my dad had me young, and then my stepmom's about the same age. And so they were all still working, you know, like everyone was still working. I didn't have any family and I wasn't living in the same place as any family. And this
Yeah.
happens a lot, you know, and there's also just like this like the almost like this praise that we still get. I actually remember a conversation with my dad one day where I had like got to the point where I needed to reach out and ask for some support with the kids. And like he even said to say, oh, well, I just kind of thought you were okay. You know, we all just like assume that because you're like strong, that you're just okay and you don't need anyone. And it's like, even if you have strong like single mother friends, please fucking go and check on them.
Yeah, and the thing is,
Please.
a lot of them feel embarrassed to ask for help. You know, the fact that like, you know, we're a generation that, you know, you've heard this before, where like my grandparents just stayed together because the thing you do. you don't break up a marriage, you just stay together and they're so miserable together. Where it's like now it's like, no, actually, like you said, I'm if that's your choice to leave, it's just again all that pressure and all them judgments and assumptions and things like, but if you have the help, it's like, without if I was a single mother right now, I don't have my family around me. I have friends, but I don't have, I've got my parents coming out in 2 weeks to help with baby, but everyone's dynamic's different and not everyone has the parents around, not everyone has beautiful, loving mothers around or fathers around, so where you can ask for help and like you said, like you just said, check in with your single mother friends. I do it all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
Like, do you need some food dropping off? Like, as in a cooked meal? That can be so helpful for mothers with little kids. Do you need me to come clean your house for a little bit? Because we were talking about this when I saw you last. Like, some mothers, the money seems great, but actually they need some cleaning done and some food making, like, yeah,
Big energy output, yeah, and you're thinking of practical ways that you can support. It's the same thing as like mums with families with new babies. Is again like I was shocked by kind of the lack of support in society of like, hi everyone, just get on with it. Just
yeah.
get on with life, and yeah, this like praise around resiliency. I'm
Mm.
like, oh, that's so potentially traumatic. That it's like you're so strong and you're so resilient and because you just like got on with it. And it's like, yeah, I was wanting to kill myself at the time, but
Just
thank you for acknowledging
I
how
I
strong I
will
was.
definitely be the one that comes on and says, you know what, like no matter how it happens with him when he's here, I will literally be saying to my friends, I really need your help and support. And even if that's a phone call, at nighttime or whatever it looks like, I'm definitely in a better space where I can say, like, obviously I've got a beautiful husband and I've got two great stepkids that can help. They're at a great age and things like that. But I've got my parents coming, so it's just, but I'm not afraid to be like, hey, you know what, I'm really struggling and I need help in whatever way that looks, depending on who can help in different ways. But even with just how many single mothers are out there, and I think, that so many don't have that help. They just don't have support around them, even if it's just emotional support,
Yeah.
and just how you've navigated it over those like I said 7 years and how your life's
Mm.
changed and now and the fact you do have a partner now, but the I can imagine being a single mother, you looking for that partner to kind of have someone there to kind of like, what I mean? Like you start looking for a partner just because having someone there to help you manage the kids. So it can kind of become this like, what's the word? You
It
get
was
stuck in
actually
like
the opposite.
you
It
were
was
the
actually the
opposite.
opposite for
Yeah.
me, yeah. And it would be different for everyone, but
Yeah.
it was the opposite. I was like, if I'm leading someone into my kids' lives,
Oh yeah.
like I'm going like there's going to be a big deal. And so actually it was more that I isolated myself
Yeah.
from other things, like I was single for how long? Maybe like a year between meeting Shaden and then 3 years after Shaden until
Yeah.
Michael. But like the situation now, this is why we can't make assumptions. It's like people have even made assumptions when I moved into this house. Michael and I were moving in together. I was like, oh no, he lives in Auckland and he's in a different city every week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can be like, oh, that's so nice. You have a partner now. I'm like absolutely yes, in the context of life. However, he's not physically here. Like it's not that I've now got this extra like physical
Pair of
support. He's not
hands.
helping
Yeah.
the kids around things. My life
Mm.
is still the same energy output. There are massive benefits to it, and I still have him to talk to and give me advice and support and create beautiful experiences with the kids. But
Mm.
the way that our life is now is, there's no way we'd be living together for the next couple of years. It's
Yeah.
just not in this bit.
But I've had like single mother clients that say like they'll own the shit and say, after a couple of months of splitting with the partner, whatever happened, they were actively looking for a partner just to fill in the void of I'm on my own, I'm alone, I need some extra support because they had no other support around them. And they said, and then that relationship obviously either failed or they're still with this person. But again, I helped them take that
Well,
shame
not
away
that.
from like, why would you choose something like that? Every dynamic's different. It's
Yeah.
just it.
Well, it is. It's like super lonely. I think there's like that's something that probably isn't spoken about enough in single parenting is that there are moments, days, months of it being very, very fucking lonely.
When your kids aren't there. Yeah.
Very lonely. Well, not even when they're not there, when they
when
are
they are
there, but
there.
then they're all in bed and then you're by yourself. You know, of yeah, just this like the loneliness of the amount of energy and love and care that is constantly going on to them. And of course they give you love and care and all of those things back, but often it's still outweighed. Like often we're
Mm.
giving a lot more than we're receiving.
Yeah, and you need
Um,
that adult, like, yeah, engagement and stuff like that. It's just, yeah.
yeah, you're getting that, like, yeah, that regular contact and chats and conversations and and all of those parts of it. And I just want to touch on like one thing that you said before is that like on getting the help that you need sometimes is that it's not necessarily that people choose to or choose not to sometimes. Like there could be very deep programming that is stopping people from even being able to reach out and ask for support.
Yeah.
Um, so it's like this, yeah. So like in that, I would be looking at like anonymous places, like the crisis lines and places that you can actually contact women's refuge, living without violence and places like that if there's been
Yeah.
domestic violence. There are amazing agencies in place. But yeah, that's the tricky thing is that sometimes the programming is like, I know this was mine, like I don't deserve help, like, and this was from when I was really, really young, or like, yeah, like asking for help means that I'm less strong and I'm perceived as being
Yeah.
strong and, all these things that are sitting. So there's so many challenges that can be present. And then ultimately the impact is that then the kids aren't getting the mum. Oh, great. So I heard this is like on this. I heard this statistic the other day. The emotional wellness and well-being of a child is impacted more than anything by one thing. Do you know what that is? Did you see this?
No.
So there is one thing that influences the well-being of our children more than anything else, and it is directly correlated to the well-being of the mother.
Mm.
Directly. It is the biggest factor that contributes to the lack of feeling good or the feeling good within our children. And I wish we understood that more because it's a huge trickle down. That yeah, it's the village. It's the not having the village. We've all just got to get around like our mamas. And obviously, I'm speaking about single mamas in this, but all of us because it has an impact on our next generation. And I'm
Yeah.
hoping that we all see children as all of our children, and that it's actually our responsibility to look after them. So it's our responsibility to look after the mother. Um, I want to finish because we're going to finish, but just like on how there are some really positive things. Like there really are, and it's like funny little things that come up. But there's great things. Like I love how I can spontaneously decide to go on holiday with my children. I'm the only adult who has to decide that, or I get to have rituals and celebrations and routines and all
Yeah.
these beautiful things that I value in my life that I get to have in my home with them. And they really get to experience me in my fullest, most authentic expression, which I due to a number of things wasn't within the marriage, and with their dad. They do get to see representation of a single woman in the world that can hold herself, that pays for everything, that makes everything happen, that gives them all of that love. And I love how they get to have that as something that they get to see in real life. I love that they get to see that just because you leave a relationship or a marriage doesn't mean that your life is bad. They
Yeah.
might make choices down the track, and I don't want them to ever think that there's anything bad or good. I just want them to make a decision that's true to them. And that's what I wanted them to know, like coming outside of the marriage, is that just living in your truth, whatever that is. And also that you can have co-parents that don't fight and aren't mean to each other, and we're not perfect co-parents. I'm not going to claim to be, but we don't argue and we're not unkind and we get along for the sake of it and all those
Yeah.
kinds of things. Just want them to see that it doesn't have to be this like picture perfect perception of life, that it can be amazing outside of it. So there's so many great things
Yeah.
that can come from it. And it's not all doom and gloom. And I fucking love it. I do love it. And I love my kids. And I do love being a single mom in so many ways.
Mm.
It's that, but that coexisting of
Yeah.
all of those things being able to be there and be present. Yeah.
Yeah, I think something I'm really passionate about talking about on another episode is navigating co-parenting. Because even though we've navigated single motherhood today, it's like co-parenting something that I'm really passionate about because I'm the stepmom in a co-parenting situation and how it works really well. And just like I have a lot of clients and friends that are in co-parenting situations, which it's dire. They kind of be in the same room together and what that looks like. So maybe that's like a follow-on. We can talk about co-parenting, how that works.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot in that.
But I really appreciate your vulnerability as well. You know, got hard and
Yeah.
challenging at times. Like you said, that you know, it's traumatic. You know, it's just going through those that like you know, just listening to your again a deeper part of your story and you navigating that. And I was even in your life then, you know, so it was just me getting to know you, and I appreciate you and I love you so much.
Thank you so much. I love you too. And you're just sending lots of big love out there to you,
Yeah.
single parents, doing your best, whatever that looks like today.
Doing your
We
best.
value, acknowledge it.
Yeah, definitely. Hats off to you all.
Mm, beautiful. Thanks, friends.
Yeah,
See you
thank you
next
so
time.
much. Sending you lots of love. Mwah. Beautiful mamas.
Mm.